and announce the call, which is Monday, August the 7th or Tuesday, August the 8th. And this is the Open Hearted Practice Group with Jim and Jory. And I'm flying solo today. Jory's feeling a little bit under the weather. She's mostly okay, but she just asked for the afternoon off, which of course I want her to take care of herself. I want everybody to follow your own needs. So if you're missing Jory, yeah, join me. Yeah, I'm missing her too. Really love having her voice here as well. And this is the Open Hearted Practice Group, which with the emphasis on practice, especially today, today's class was called Practice, Practice, Practice. And the way we practice is using these three different modes of nonviolent communication practice. One being self-connection. I'll guide you in a self-connection exercise or meditation or whatever you want to call it in just a moment. If you want to do that, you're welcome to join. And then we'll have a chance to check in and practice honesty and empathy in small groups. If for some reason you don't want to do that, then just put an equal sign in front of your name. But we're going to be almost the whole class today is in breakout rooms. So if you don't want to be in a breakout room, you're probably not going to get a whole lot out of the class, but you're welcome to stay anyway. But I wanted you to be alert that it's really a lot about practice today. And so let's go ahead and just start with our self-connection exercise. You're already doing it, the essence of this particular exercise. So I'm just going to remind you of something that you already are doing and invite you to bring some awareness to it. And to support you in that, you might enjoy closing your eyes, but it's completely optional. But I'm going to close mine, at least for most of it. And then I invite you to notice that you're breathing. You don't have to try to change any of your breath. Just notice breathing. And then consider each breath as a gift. Each time we breathe in, we're breathing in oxygen, the gift of life. So you might consider breathing in and saying, thank you. For each breath sustains us for another few seconds. Breathing in, thank you. So this gift that we're receiving is given to us compassionately, which for me means it's given because we have a need. So life is responding to our need to sustain itself and gives us the gift of each breath compassionately. Breathing in, experiencing compassion and gratitude. And see if you can keep that up just on the in-breath. Each in-breath, connect with compassion and gratitude. Now, you're also breathing out. Breathing out is giving a gift. So from this place of gratitude, we can serve life. We can give life without any effort. We breathe out carbon dioxide. which is a gift to every single plant on the planet. And you're giving it from this compassionate place. So breathing in, experiencing the gratitude, and then from this place of abundance, breathing out and giving it away. Let's just play with that. Just imagine this energy that you're breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in the gift of life, breathing out the gift of life. And then notice that we're all doing this. If you're choosing to do the exercise, we're all doing this together. So together in community, we're breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, tasting gratitude, breathing out, tasting abundance, and doing it together. And not only that, we're all breathing the same air. It's not like I have my own air here that's different or separate from your air. So all of us, we're all breathing the same air. When we first moved to Hawaii, I learned that that's the deeper meaning of aloha. Means we're breathing the same air. We're sharing our breath. So right in the middle of compassionate giving and receiving with every breath that we take. And we're doing it together. And not only that, but we've been doing it for 1,000,000 years or more. Because all of our ancestors joined us in this activity every moment of their life. And it's perfectly balanced with plants because they're doing this, the exact opposite of us. They're breathing in our gift of carbon dioxide, breathing out oxygen. Just like 1,000,000 generations of plants before the ones that are nearby you. So I'll be quiet for about 2 minutes while you just breathe this connected breath. If you just join us, we're just breathing together in silence for a couple of minutes. So with the next breath that you take, see if you can think of something that you feel grateful for right now. If you can't, don't worry about it, let it go. But see if you can think of one thing that you feel grateful for right now. And in a moment, we're going to go to small groups and have our first exercise of the day. So as you start to come back to this main room where we're all together, you can open your eyes if they've been closed. And I'm going to share my screen so that those of you who like to take screenshots to help you during the exercise, you can do that. It's a little bit different. We did this a couple weeks ago. So for some of you, it'll be familiar, but we're going to do a check-in using reflection. So there'll be 3 or 4 people per group. And the group, by the way, will last about 15 minutes. So should be spacious. This is a really important exercise. So I want to make sure that there's no hurry. So everyone gets a chance to practice. And simply whoever chooses to go first says something that they're grateful for. And you can say a brief story about it if it's important to you, or it might just be a very brief thing. And then the second speaker in your group will reflect something that you heard from the first speaker and confirm that you got it. And then the second speaker shares something that they're grateful for. And then the third speaker reflects, make sure you got it. Then the third speaker shares, and so on. And you keep doing this for 15 minutes. If it starts to shift into something beyond gratitude, like maybe there's something that's important for you to share about your NVC learning journey or something else, share it briefly, and the next person in your group will reflect it. And all the rest of us, when we're in the small group, we're holding empathic space to kind of help the speaker and the listener contact their honesty when they're speaking and their empathy when they're reflecting. So it's a pretty simple exercise. We do this all the time in our life. So the main difference from this is to bring a quality of choice to doing this, to speak about gratitude, and then to reflect what you heard was important to the other person. Anybody have any questions about this before we go to small groups? I'm going to put these instructions into the chat as well. And there is a question in the chat, which I will attend to as soon as I get this pasted.
Jim, just before you paste it.
There we go. Okay, so the question in the chat says, I'm wondering if step 9 is the first speaker reflecting the fourth speaker. Yes, exactly. That's a typo. Thanks for catching that. Great. All right, any other questions? Okay, so like I said, 15 minutes, you'll see a counter in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that will count it down. If you're not in a group yet, you will be very soon, so just be patient. And also be patient because it takes, depending on people's internet connection speed, it might take a few minutes for the group to become fully formed. So just be patient and keep breathing. All right, we'll see you all back here in about 15 minutes. All right. Wow, look at all these faces. My goodness. So let's see here. This is the time where we get a chance to practice our honesty for anybody who wants to speak up in the large group and just share what your experience was like in the small group. Maybe there's something you liked about it or something that you didn't like about it, or maybe there's something else alive in you right now that you share. So we just spend a few minutes of our time just hearing from you to find out what it's like for you so far in our class today. And if you want to raise your hand, you can do like Kimberly did. There's a little button on the bottom of your screen that if you have the latest Zoom software, it says raise hand. If you have older software, you might need to click on the reactions button. Then you'll find the raise hand button under reactions on the bottom of your screen. Okay, Kimberly, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I think I had an experience. I mean, I know I had an experience in our small group where we were all very human and so at times a little awkward. And we really were, I think, through the gift of NVC and being willing to falter, if you will, and not necessarily know exactly how to do it or when to share or when to stop, or we were able to all move through that in a lovely, imperfect way. And I think that's a real gift of NVC.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to share was that I was talking about my gratitude for my sister. And it was amazing to me how multifaceted it was once I brought it to the fore. It wasn't just that I was grateful for her. I was grateful for our relationship and things we've worked on and acceptance, and then NVC coming into my ability to try to impart. And even that doesn't really work for me because I don't really want to try to do anything for or to her, but my experience in NVC has helped me so incredibly with my relationships. And what I noticed, two things when I shared was, one, how appreciative I was of her and accepting, and that was a beautiful gift that NVC had given me, even though we're quite different. And I used to get very upset with her and hurt and maybe harbor resentments. So that, but also a new realization came to me about how do I share in a way that doesn't make me feel that I have any power over, because I have a lot of tools and she has very few. And I liked that I had that sort of insight, because now I can try to work with that more, because I don't want to give her my knowledge or tell her, you know, sort of what I think. There's something much more, for lack of a better word, peaceful and neutral in a way that I'd like to share NVC with her.
Lovely. I really appreciate it. It sounds like you have decided to, not that you ever had it in the first place, but you've decided to give up the idea of correcting somebody into becoming NVC, and rather just living NVC yourself and focusing on connection.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Amber?
Yeah, it was great practice. It was just so refreshing for me to, I just recently moved to Cambodia from the US, and I have kind of been culture shocking on two levels. One, coming to a new country, which I love this part of the world, but still there's a lot of adaptations. And then also not being in my NVC community because of the huge time zone change for about a couple of months, where I was totally immersed for like 2.5 years. In the last 2 months, I have not been around NVC people. So it has been such a jolt to my system. So this practice was just like drinking water in the desert, like, oh, thank you. It's so, NVC is so vital for my wellness and my health, like in many capacities. And I think communication is the missing link to health. And so thank you, everyone.
Thank
being
you. Sounds
here.
like you got to have a nice sip of cool water on a hot day.
Yeah.
Love,
Thanks.
great. Leela?
I was surprised how much effort it took to listen so closely that I could be accurately reflect to the other person. I loved the challenge of it, and just feel motivated by focusing on the purposes connection. That's why I want to be able to listen that closely. And I love the idea of one person in the group to do that little exercise even with friends, especially when complaining is happening.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
great. Yes, it could transform the world. Imagine if business happened this way, or if Thanksgiving dinners. You know, in the United States, we have this holiday every year called Thanksgiving, which often becomes a celebration of conflict because of different politics or religious views or whatever. What if we actually focused on gratitude and then reflecting that gratitude as we went around the celebration table? That would be such a sweet innovation for our culture. Thank you, Leela. Is that complete?
Yes.
And Elise?
Hi. One thing that I noticed as well is that it requires a lot of concentration to really hear what somebody else is saying with the details that they're saying, and to really be actively listening to what they're saying in order to reflect it back. It's yeah, because I know a lot of times I'm hearing things, but I'm not hearing all the details. So for me to hear everything to reflect it, it's you know, it takes a little work on my part to do that as well. And something that I noticed is when people reflect back, it's I'm noticing people sometimes want to bring in their filters or what they think you're saying, or other aspects to it, which that might be their add-on, but it's not just what you're saying. It's, you know, it's also through their filter of what they're thinking you're saying, what they're hearing.
Yeah, good point. A very good point. We never hear what another person says. We only hear what we hear. That's a really great thing to keep in mind. And that's why we reflect. That's a really good point. Did I get it? Did I get the essence of what you're saying? And I'm totally with you, Elise, about how much, especially in the beginning of the practice, how much energy it takes to focus and to maintain focus. It's a real mindfulness thing. It
Yep.
really is a mindfulness thing. Thank you. And we'll
Thank
finish
you.
with, yeah, we'll finish with Jeff, unless there's somebody else that raises their hand.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My question was very similar to Elise's, because I did a bit of that, adding on to what the person said based on what I was feeling in the moment that they might be expressing. And so I wondered about is the point of the exercise to kind of give back word for word what the person says, or like, you know, really kind of take in what's between the lines of what they're saying?
I would say that depends on the needs of the moment. You know, in
Mhm.
certain situations, like when I order a pizza, I really want to make sure that they got all the details. So I'm going to be pretty clear in my confirmation request. But if I'm just having you know, if I'm just listening to someone around the Thanksgiving table, or like right now, I'm listening to you and reflecting back just a little bit of what I'm getting. Because it's not a quiz. I don't think that I'm trying to pass a test. I'm just trying to make sure that I got the essence of what you're saying. So I think I said in the second speaker reflects one part of the first speaker's expression. So it's just and it could be the most important part. It could be the need. It could be the feeling. Could be the observation, depending on where you are in your dialogue. So there's no right answer. It's probably particularly unsatisfying. Jeff, but how do you feel hearing that?
I wrote, you know, I wanted to ask this question, and then underneath that I answered the question for myself with, I can't get it wrong.
Exactly.
Because doing like this is what I heard. I heard feelings behind the words too, maybe, or maybe I imagined them. I don't know. So I'm grateful for the back and forth about this.
You're very welcome. And I love that this thing you said about you can't get it wrong. When we first started coming to Hawaii before we moved here, we made a friend in the NVC community. Her name's Nicole Shipman, and she once at an NVC meeting, she said, you know, what if we actually had the idea that there was nothing wrong here? What if there was nothing wrong here? That's about 8 or 9 words. That's the essence of NVC consciousness. Because what's left if there's nothing wrong is what's connecting us. What's there to celebrate or to mourn? Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
I feel complete.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to do some more practice in just a second, but I'm going to share a screen with you first and invite you to do a quick self-assessment. And so what I'm going to do, we call this the 9 skills of, and it's what we've been working on. I haven't explicitly said that that's what we've been doing for the last 2 months or so, but this is exactly what we've been doing. So if I want to just review each one of these skills and then invite you to assess yourself on a continuum from, I don't know what that is, I've never heard that concept before, to, oh, I think I'm okay with that. That would be kind of in the middle, to, oh yeah, I really am celebrating how I've integrated that particular skill, at least sometimes in my life. So it starts in the center with what we call the 0 step. Marshall Rosenberg called it spiritual clarity. And it's exactly this thing that a few people pointed to. It's like bringing our awareness to our intention to connect when we are in a situation, and then focusing on something really important, which is the present moment. That's what we mean by the 0 step. And so this is like an inner thing we do before we engage. We actually set our 0 step. So just take a moment and assess for yourself where you might be. Maybe use a continuum of 0 to 10. You won't have to share this with anybody. This is just for your own use. And of course, it's contextual. Sometimes it's really easy to get into 0, but if we're tired or hungry or emotionally charged, dysregulated, then the 0 step seems a million miles away. But just on average, where would you put yourself? Maybe even in the last exercise. How did you do with the 0 step? Then the second skill would be inviting at the top of the screen. Inviting means it's a kind of a request where we invite a dialogue when it really matters to us, but we do it from 0. So there's an openness to hear no. How are you with the skill of inviting? And then the next skill we'll explore is self-empathy. Self-empathy refers to being able to use nonviolent communication to support ourselves in getting clear on what we're observing, feeling, needing, and requesting from moment to moment, to really especially focus on what are we needing in this moment. So check yourself for your skill of self-empathy. And then the next skill would be gratitude. Gratitude is when it's a celebration of needs that have been satisfied. It's something that happens inside ourselves first. We notice the pleasurable feelings that naturally emerge when needs are met, and we slow down enough to mindfully take it in that in this moment, our needs have been satisfied. And we may choose to share that or not, but it's really about the consciousness of gratitude that we're assessing here. Then consider the skill of empathy. There's lots of definitions for empathy. I like Marshall's definition of respectful understanding of another person's experience, this ability that human beings have to be able to put ourselves in the experience of another without necessarily having the same experience, but to really have a sense of understanding and respecting the other person's experience. Empathy. And then consider the skill of honest self-expression. This is the skill we use when we open our mouth and we shared our gratitude, or when Jeff or others raised their hand and shared something here. And there are skills that we can bring to the expression of our honesty. Or do we take responsibility for it? Do we link our feelings to our needs? Do we end on a clear and present request, and so forth? So considering your own access to this skill of honest self-expression, how are you doing? And then along the bottom are 3 other kinds of requests. So we're pretty good, some of us anyway, at asking for feedback. So we share our honesty, and then we ask the other person, how do you feel when I tell you that? Or how do you feel when you hear that? Or what comes up for you about that? So just consider your skill level around asking for the feedback from another person. Then consider requesting confirmation. This is something that seems sometimes a little bit strange to people. And it seems like a stretch into this skill of asking someone, what did you hear me say? Or what did you hear was important to me? And the point being not to quiz the other person, but rather just to make sure that you were clear in your honest expression and communicating what it was that you were really trying to get across to the other person. Did you do it in a way that connected? So that's why we request confirmation. How would you rate your skill on that? And then finally, requesting action. Depending on the culture that we grew up in, some of us are really adept at asking for what we want. And we're pretty good at making clear and specific action requests. In other cultures, like the one that I grew up in, you'd never ask for what you want unless you wanted to be punished for it. Almost never. So I didn't learn very much about that in my culture. But I've come a long way. How far have you come? Where are you in being able to ask for collaboration in creating the world that you want to live in? Okay. So now look at your ratings, and if you're like me and you've suffered the trauma of being in school and grades and so forth, you might not have enjoyed this process too much. But just pick out one thing that you really celebrate about your skills. And I see your hand, Rob. We'll go right to you in just a moment. But invite everybody to pick one skill that you celebrate. Even if there's more than one, just pick one for now. And then pick one skill that you'd like to work on for the rest of the day. It's another hour or so. So pick one skill that you just like to focus on in your own practice for the rest of the day. You can practice them all, of course, but what's the skill that you want to bring some conscious attention to growing into? And finally, just ask yourself like a seed planting question. How could I use my strength to work on this skill today that I'd like to work on? You don't have to have an answer. You just ask yourself the question. You might come up with an answer, but again, just ask yourself, how could I use my strength in whatever to work on my skill of Rob? Your hand's up. I'm curious what you have to say.
Oh, can you put that diagram back up?
You betcha. That's an action request. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking the only order seems to be the 0 step and then inviting, and then some of the diagrams on top, and then the ones. Is there a certain order that you are
Thank you.
saying here?
Thank you for asking. The point of, so let me see, how do I want to say this? Traditionally, the way that nonviolent communication has been taught is with an order of things. First, you say the
Yeah.
observation, then you say your feeling, then you say your request, your need, and then you say what your request is. And, you know, it becomes like this 4-step process. The point of this diagram is to so that's kind of a left brain way of working with NVC, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's great for learning. And this is more of a right brain approach to NVC. It's this whole thing called nonviolent communication. And it begins with this thing in the middle. That's the only step, really, is the 0 step. And from there, you follow your intuition from moment to moment. Obviously, at the beginning of a conversation, you might start from 0 with inviting. And then that makes sense to maybe then to go to empathy after you invite somebody. And then from that place of empathy, you might reflect back what you heard, and then go to your honesty and end on one of those requests at the bottom. So there's some sort of potential orders of thing, but you might be smack in the middle. You're 20 minutes into a conversation, and suddenly you have this insight that you need to go back to 0 for yourself and re-invite what's really important to you in this moment. So it may be completely out of order. The invitation may come at a different place and so forth. Is that making any sense to you, Rob? I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking you were talking about inviting to yourself. I always thought that inviting was the segue to get the connection, to bring the other person in and have a rapport.
That's right. That's right. That's how I would hold it. But it's like the first expression of honesty.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might just say, something's been on my mind. I'd like to talk to you about it. Is this a good time? That would be an invitation. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions or comments about this brief self-assessment? Okay, so now we're going to set up another chance to go to the small groups, but it's going to take a little bit of work to do it. And so we're going to go through some questions, try to do it relatively quickly so that you have maximum amount of time in small groups. So first, think of something you'd like to talk about with someone you care about. Think of something you'd like to talk about with someone that you care about. And then who is it and what's the topic? The more specific and concrete you can be, probably the more fun you'll have with the exercise. So rather than talk about money, which is a really big topic, you might talk about the fact that it's when you looked at the budget recently, you discovered that something that things seemed a little bit out of whack, and you wanted to discuss how you might be able to spend less money on something with your spouse, your partner, or your roommates. And then what's the observation that motivates you to have this conversation? This is for you. This is to support your own clarity. What did you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch that motivates you to have this conversation? What's the stimulus? So we're doing the step of self-empathy, just in case you're curious. We're starting with really connecting with what we want to talk about, why we want to talk about it, what the motivation was. This is all part of the self-empathy part of NVC. And then it naturally invites us to go to how we feel about this situation right now. Not when it happened, but right now in this practice group, how do you feel? Right now, how do you feel when you think about this? And then consider what needs are important for you. What needs are important to you? I'll put up a needs sheet. Sometimes it's helpful to have a need sheet up. Don't get hung up on these words. Really, your words are the important ones. How would you describe your needs? And then what's the best thing that could happen? What would you like to ask of the other person? What's your aim for having the conversation? So now we shift attention to the other person involved in the conversation. If you were to invite this conversation, what's your prediction about their response? What do you sense they will feel and need if you ask to have this conversation. Based on that empathy guess, maybe you want to think about how you might want to invite the conversation so that you increase the chances of your invitation being experienced as warm, curious, and connecting. So in other words, now that you have some clarity about your needs and a guess about the needs of the other person, how could you open the conversation in a way that you predict might support connection? I pause here to see if there's any questions or if anybody's stuck in any of this preliminary self-empathy work, if anybody needs some support. Okay, not seeing any questions. So let me look at my groups here. I need to move some people around because some people have arrived and some have left. Want to have groups of 3 this time whenever possible. So there'll be, you might
Can I
meet
ask
some.
a question?
Go
Can I
ahead,
interrupt for a moment and ask a question?
please do.
Something I'm struggling with, which might be a little bit of a complex issue to talk about in the group. I don't know. I've always relied on MVC to create connection and through a sense of integrity and honesty and transparency to create understanding and harmony. And something I'm hitting in my life now is understanding that some people don't want to connect and they don't want honesty because either they've got a lot of out of integrity stuff going on in their life and they don't want to be seen in that, or they don't want to be in touch with their own hearts and are really resistant to anybody even witnessing their heart because it's too intimidating and aggravates the blocked pain. And I'm really struggling with how I can connect across those kind of barriers, or if the only answer is that there is no connection or very limited connection, and how to prepare myself if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I would say that for the purposes of a practice group, the best thing to do would be choose somebody else, choose another less charged conversation to have, and practice, and then you'll kind of deepen your skill set. And then when I was listening to you speak, I heard some a deep need for empathy for you before you open this conversation. And so that would be the second piece of guidance, is find a trusted empathy buddy, get the empathy that you need in order to release any subtle judgments you might have about the other person. And then just check, and then the other thing that will emerge from that is you get to check, do you want to connect with this person? You know, maybe you do and maybe you don't. And so and that might be true for them too. Maybe they do and maybe they don't. And then the last little thing that I would say is I like to make a distinction between connection and involvement.
Right,
So
that's
here's what the distinction is. Connection is something that I already have with everybody on the planet. We're all breathing the same air. We all have the same needs. So we're already connected. Now, who do I want to involve myself with? Well, now I realize there's a menu of 8 billion choices. And so I want to really honor my autonomy in the autonomy of the other 8 billion people and hang out with the people that would be the most fun to hang out with.
Mhm.
And so I try to hold that, and then to see that even if the other person says no to me, which happens, I can still connect. I can still, like, I can watch TV and watch maybe I can watch a TV show that's like a fictional show, or maybe I watch the news and some political figure comes up and I notice my enemy image come up. Well, that's the first step of connection, is I notice that I've got a judgment, and then I can actually use that to try to understand what might be motivating them. And I'll never meet them, but I can still kind of practice. I used to do that all the time when I was a brand new NVC student. I would listen to radio stations that had political commentary of the opposite that I believed in, just to test, just to stretch my capacity to empathize. Yeah. So how do you feel hearing all that advice?
That's really, I really appreciate the step-by-step layers, and that it gives me a sense of hope and empowerment that I have much more choices than I was seeing. It's a family situation, so they can often feel really locked in, and
Course.
it's great to think about layers and maneuverability. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, family's PhD level NVC. Even if you're married to a certified trainer, believe me, it's still PhD level. Okay, so
Thank
we're going to go and practice in groups of 3 for 30 minutes. And you guys get to determine in your small group how you want to practice. Are you going to divide the time up for 10 minutes for each person to practice? Or is there one person who really wants to just listen and observe the other two have a conversation? Or are you going to do a role play? So you get to use there's no rule about what you do in your small group. I want you to trust your own intuition, not what the NVC guru thinks you should do. So start using those 9 skills as soon as you get into your small group, and work together to collaborate on how you're going to be together. If that's all you do for 30 minutes, that's great. Just that you use this as an opportunity to practice live with each other about how you want to practice. That is the practice. And then if you get to actually do a role play or something like that, more the better. Okay. We'll be doing it for 30 minutes. Timer will count you down. There'll be 1 minute at the end to finish up. And it still won't be enough time. But anyway, we got 30 minutes today. So we're going to go for it. All right. See you back here in a half an hour. Stand by for Zoom. Here everybody comes back. Okay. So I want to hear from a few people, but first I want to guide you in a little, the second half of the self-assessment. So these are the skills that we identified at the beginning of the exercise. So just take a moment and reflect on your own experience during the last exercise, especially noticing the skill that you intended to awaken during the exercise and the strength that you had already identified, and just measure, how did you do? Is there a celebration there? Is there some mourning, a little bit of both? So I'll be quiet for 1 minute while you reflect on it. Maybe write yourself a note, a love note, acknowledging your efforts. Second question to consider about the exercise that you just experienced, and really for the whole group today. What worked for you that you did that supported connection? What did you do that supported connection? And see if you can be specific about an observation of something that you did or didn't do, something that you said or didn't say, that you have the intuition supported connection. Again, I'll be quiet for a minute or two while you reflect and write. What worked to support connection? Final question for self-reflection is, what requests do you have of yourself from now on to support yourself in creating more connection when you're using NVC? What requests do you have of yourself from now on? anyone would like to share either what you're celebrating about the practice or requests that you have of yourself or anything else that you'd like to share about? There's be a chance to raise your hand again and hear a few voices, especially voices we haven't yet heard from today, but all voices are welcome. Yeah. Cecilia.
Hey, so I think for me, what I realized that was really supportive of connection was in attuning to what the other person is sharing, just noticing this sort of mind movie playing in my head, like this ability to, you know, take a journey into their lives. And of course, it can not be accurate because I'm not there, but just the effort of doing it, and in my reflection back, noticing how that was helpful to understand and be there with them and for them. And at the same time, noticing how hard it is for me to do that with my family members. So I think my request for myself is to try and do that, you know, remind myself that I can do that and try and do that with the people that are closer to me, that I feel that I have a narrower view, you know, I have more of my own intentions and desires for them, and see if I can step further back to do this with them.
Nice. So curious to find out how that works for you, to see what you learn from setting that intention for yourself.
Yeah, we'll talk in a few years.
Oh, maybe lifetimes, who knows? But yes, it's a never-ending journey. But I really like the idea of listening to another person and kind of building a movie or a story based on what you hear. That would require curiosity and openness and so forth. So it sounds like a great strategy. I'm curious how it works for you. Thank you, Cecilia. Janelle.
Hey, so it was really interesting responding to your second question about what request do I have of myself now, and how much it transformed something that felt quite stuck. And I was feeling quite anxious that I didn't know how to navigate my way through. And it kind of, you know, I write it and it seems so simple that I need to ask for what I want. So when I'm feeling disconnected, just to verbalize how it is that I'm feeling.
Wonderful. What a wonderful step that could be. For some reason, it reminds me of a time when I got invited to mediate between a father and a son. They were both adults, and they were beginning to negotiate about turning over the family business. And I'm supposed to be the mediator and help them navigate their conversation. And within about 30 seconds of their conversation opening, they both seemed to get triggered, and they were in their old reactive pattern. And I was, my experience was I was swamped. I was completely, had no idea what to do, frozen. It's totally frozen. So I noticed that. And then I went to the self-empathy step. And I just said, oh, Jim, this is all inside my head. They're continuing to fight. They don't even know that I've checked out, right? They're so focused on each other, as far as I could tell. And so I'm giving myself some empathy. Oh, Jim, are you really feeling lost right now? And you don't have any idea what to do. Yeah, that's right. Is it kind of just scary for you? Yeah, it's really scary. You really want to help. Yeah, I really do want to help, but you just don't know what to do. Yeah, you don't know what to do. Yeah, so what might help? Well, I could reflect the last thing that I heard. Okay, would you like to try that? Yeah, I'll try that. And so I did that. I just took my own advice. I re-engaged in the conversation. They never knew I was gone. I listened when the last person finished, or maybe they were both talking at the same time, but at some point I interrupted and I said, let me see if I got this. And I reflected the last thing that I heard. And then from there, we were able to reconnect. So taking that moment of self-empathy, that was a huge lesson for me, that I can't do NVC without self-empathy. It's just not possible. Any response you have to what I've said, Janelle?
It's funny that that moment of self-empathy, I hadn't heard it in what I shared, but that's the important first part, is to recognize and acknowledge I'm disconnecting, and that isn't what I'm wanting from this situation, this experience. And then I think where I didn't get to is that advice piece, you know, that internal dialogue of where could I go from here that would lead me towards connection. So beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And we'll finish up, I think, with Rob. There might be time for one more. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, when we went to the breakout groups, I had a strategy that, if the group seemed like immediately to meet my needs, I'd just, get out of that group and come back and get some empathy from you, Jim, some top quality, and it turned to be just a guy in myself, and I was doubtful, but I felt our vulnerability come up, our connection, some depth to the processing about family, and some remorse and guilt, and some bittersweet aliveness, but it was better than the kind of thing that a lot of us guys are taught is don't feel, be a guy, don't feel type of thing. So we did the feeling, and it felt great. So I'm celebrating that. Yeah.
Wonderful, Rob. I'm so glad that you had that experience, and I'm really grateful that you shared it with us.
Yeah.
So let's do our kind of closing announcements here. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as we used to say down in Atlanta. Jory will be back with us next week, and we'll continue this practice. This is a very rich opportunity to just keep practicing together and bring what's ever alive in you, and then we can debrief it and continue to learn from each other. So I think it seems to be really powerful. So that's what the plan will be for next week. If you have requests about what you would like to see in future classes, just let me know. Respond to the email that I send out once a week, and let me know what's alive in you. So I put a link in the chat to the CNVC's website about the International Intensive Training that we have. I think there's a few seats left in that. So if you've been thinking about going, but you haven't decided yet, it's probably a good time to decide. And would love to hang out with you in Bali. It's our first trip to Asia since 2019. So Jory and I are excited to get back on the road again and share some NVC with folks. And if you would like to join us, we'd love to have you. And beautiful Bali. And how lucky am I to go from one tropical paradise to another one? Jory loves to talk with folks one-on-one. I think that's her favorite way of contributing these days, and or to do mediation work. So there's Jory's scheduler. If you would like to hang out with Jory for an hour or so, you can, or a half an hour, whatever works for you, and you can make an appointment with her. And she does everything like we both do on a compassionate giving and receiving basis. So if you want, we give all of our NVC work away as a gift. And then if you want to give something back, we would love to receive it. That's how Jory sets things up. And also, if you're not on our mail list and you would like to be, if you didn't get an email yesterday morning or this morning, and you want to get one, then put your email in the chat right now, and I will manually add it to the list. We do record the calls, as I mentioned at the beginning. Here are a couple of links to how you can listen to the calls, either on our website, pathwaystoliberation.com, or on our YouTube channel. I believe there's on the website, there's well over 100 videos. So if there's a particular topic about NVC that you're looking for, then you're likely to be able to find it on pathways-to-liberation.com. You can just scroll through the various topics. And let's see here. I did write a book about a couple years ago now, unbelievably, called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. It's a very simple book, but it's got some pretty profound ways of practicing NVC and supporting yourself in kind of the skill work that we focus on in this class. And if you use internationalshopping.com, you can probably get it shipped to you for free. Okay, and let's see here. This is the last week, I think, that we're going to be requesting money from to support the school that's being built, NVC school built in Rusinga Island in Kenya. And so if you would like to give money to that in honor of what you received here today, any gifts are welcome. $5, $10, $50, $100. If you do decide to donate some money, let me know that you did it, and we'll match your donation. And next week, hopefully Kirsten will be able to join us, and together we will give the money or acknowledge the money. The money will have already been given by then, but we will hopefully have Kirsten here to acknowledge your generosity in supporting the project that she launched for us. And with that, I think we're complete for today. I really enjoyed being with you. It's always tender for me to do it without Jory. But today was pretty easy because lots of practice, and that's what we like. We really want to kind of set the plate for you guys to be able to have lots of time to practice. So we'll do that next week as well. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the 10,000 things that you will each do to support nonviolence in your own life. Each time you open your mouth, you can become a peace worker or a peace breaker. And honor that most of you, most of the time, are probably choosing to be peacemakers. So thank you for that. And see you next week. If you want to stick around for an after party, just stick around. And I'll make some small groups for you in just a moment. Aloha, everybody.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Wonderful class. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
When you said I could make some groups, I was hoping you were going to say I can make some popcorn for us.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll go make some popcorn. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks a lot. Man. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.